Well, here we are again for another 5-minute sermon. Sorry we missed last week, but here we are going through another chapter or two of the Bible. We are going to be in 1Peter chapter 4 and 5 for the next 12 weeks or so. And I thought I'd give us a run-up in Peter to this point and then just deal with the first verse in chapter 4. If we look at 1 Peter, it is a book or a letter that seems to be born to a suffering people, a confused, discouraged, and persecuted group. And so you see some of the most rich and amazing Christological truths in here about God's sovereign goodness and his care and concern for his people, and how suffering is not something that is unexpected. It is not something that is a demonstration of our maybe doing something wrong in the wrong way, but it is simply a part of our faith walk. It is simply part of our life. If we love Jesus, there will be a following of his example, and the mind of Christ is going to stand in opposition to the world and the things of the world. And that's where we kind of start in here in chapter 4, verse 1 of the book of 1 Peter. Since therefore Christ suffered in the flesh, arm yourselves with the same way of thinking. For whoever has suffered in the flesh has ceased from sin. Whoever has suffered in the flesh has ceased from sin. That's an amazing set of statements. I absolutely love what Peter wrote here. Because of Christ's suffering, because of what he has done, because of the life that he lived and the death that he died, we are to arm ourselves with his manner of thinking. That's a most impressive concept. How do we have the mind of Christ? I think if we turn over to Philippians chapter 2, verses 4 through 7, we'll kind of get a little bit of clarity as to what it means to arm ourselves with this manner of thinking. Verse 4, Philippians chapter 2, let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. Have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men. Now, again, a phenomenal set of verses. It starts out with asking us to not look towards our own interests only, but to those of other people as well. This is contrary to the world. In the world, we are going to, do me and get mine and worry about none other. But the mind of Christ is to consider others of more value than yourself. So when it says, have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, what it's saying is you have this mind in Christ, have this mind. Now, this is kind of what Peter's saying here. Arm yourselves with this same way of thinking. Arm yourselves with the way of thinking that Christ had. So that we can what? Verse 2, so as to live for the rest of the time in the flesh, no longer for human passions, but for the will of God. This is what we are setting our minds to, the ways of Christ, arming ourselves with his manner of thinking. We are doing so that we might not live to the flesh, so that we might not live to the world, so that as Christians, all Christians, regular Christians, not radical Christians, just Christian, might live with a life concerned about the will of God. Christian, that's my question to you. Is your concern for the will of God? Is your concern that you might arm yourself with his manner of thinking, who had a desire for the will of God above all else? Think with me about the Garden of Gethsemane. 3 times he prayed, and 3 times there was an answer. Lord, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but your will be done. And I think that's the answer. Not my will, but your will be done. I don't necessarily desire the suffering. It's not something we just want to bring on to ourselves. However, not my will, but your will, Father. This is the manner of thinking that we are going to arm ourselves with. So, Christian, friends, arm yourselves with this same way of thinking, in which the will of God is your desire and no longer human passion. Thanks for your time. We'll catch you guys next time.